My dear friend, child of God, I want to speak to your heart this morning as we stand together at the threshold of a new day. The sun is rising, painting the sky with colors of hope and promise. But I know that for many of you this morning feels heavy. Isaiah 40 verse 29 tells us that He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. This is not just ancient poetry. This is a living promise for you right now in this very moment. Today, you may be facing challenges that feel too big, conversations that seem too difficult, or responsibilities that appear too overwhelming. But what if I told you that you do not have to face any of it in your own strength? What if this morning could be the moment when heaven equips you for everything that awaits? Imagine stepping into today, not with dread, but with divine confidence, knowing that you are covered, strengthened, and fully prepared by the One who spoke the universe into existence. Before we continue, I would love to know where you are watching from this morning. Would you take just a moment and type your location in the comments below? And if this prayer is speaking to your heart already, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so we can continue to pray together. You are not alone in what you are facing. There is a whole community here, and we are walking this journey together. Now let me take you deeper into this prayer, because what I am about to share might change how you see this entire day. I woke up at 5:30 this morning, and before my alarm even sounded, my eyes were already open. It is strange how the mind works, is it not? The moment consciousness returns, before we even take our first full breath of the day, our thoughts begin to race. I lay there in the darkness, and immediately my brain started downloading the agenda for today. The presentation I have to give at work, the difficult conversation I need to have with my teenage son about choices he has been making, the medical test results I am waiting for that could change everything, the budget that simply does not stretch far enough to cover what this month demands. Each thought felt like a weight being placed on my chest, one after another, until breathing itself became an exercise in effort. My wife was still sleeping peacefully beside me, and I found myself almost envying her peace while my mind spun like a tornado. Maybe you woke up the same way this morning. Maybe your first thought was not gratitude, but worry. Maybe before your feet hit the floor, your heart was already heavy. Let me paint some pictures for you, because I know I am not alone in this. Perhaps you are a single mother, and you woke up this morning already anxious about the childcare situation that keeps falling through. You need to get to work, but you do not know who will watch your children, and the stress of it is crushing. Or maybe you are a college student, and today holds exams you do not feel prepared for, despite all the hours you have studied. The pressure to perform, to succeed, to prove yourself, feels like it might break you. Perhaps you are a businessman who knows that today you have to lay off employees, people who have families, mortgages, lives that depend on their paychecks. The weight of that responsibility sits on your shoulders like a mountain. Or maybe you are facing a chemotherapy appointment, and the very thought of walking back into that treatment room makes you want to run in the opposite direction. Perhaps you are the adult child of aging parents, and today you have to have the conversation about nursing homes or memory care, watching the person who raised you slowly fade, making decisions you never wanted to make. What connects all of these scenarios? What is the common thread that runs through each of these very different situations? It is not the specific challenge itself. It is the feeling, the overwhelming sense of, I do not know if I have what this requires. It is waking up already tired. It is facing a mountain that seems too steep to climb. It is the gap between what is being demanded of you and what you feel you can actually give. Let me describe this gap more clearly. It is like being asked to run a marathon when you can barely walk. It is like being asked to lift a boulder when you can barely lift your own head off the pillow. It is like being asked to solve a complex equation when your mind is nothing but fog. This gap is where so many of us live. This gap is where we suffer. But I want you to hear this. This gap is also where God meets us. But before I go further, I need to anchor us in truth, because feelings without truth will lead us astray. Psalm 46 verse 1 says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." I want you to really hear each word of this verse. God is our refuge. That means He is our safe place, our shelter from the storm. God is our strength. Not just emotional comfort, but actual power to act, to move forward, to do what needs to be done. An ever-present help. Not absent, not distant, not detached. Right here, right now, in this very moment. In trouble. Not help to avoid trouble, but help in the middle of it. This changes everything, friend. We are not praying for a trouble-free day. We are praying for God's presence in whatever this day brings. Let me take you back through history for a moment. Think about Moses standing at the edge of the Red Sea, with the Egyptian army thundering toward him from behind. Exodus 14 verses 13 and 14 tell us, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring." Moses had no natural solution. There was no plan B. There was no escape route. The sea was in front of him, the army behind him, and his people were terrified. But God made a way through the impossible. Think about David facing Goliath. Everyone else saw a giant that was undefeatable. But David saw an opportunity for God to demonstrate His power. 1 Samuel 17 verse 45 records David saying, "I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." David's strength was not in his sling. It was not in his aim. It was not in his courage. It was in his God. And consider Paul, who faced shipwrecks, prisons, beatings, and constant persecution. In 2 Corinthians 12 verses 9 and 10, he wrote, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Paul learned the secret that I am trying to share with you this morning. When I am weak, then I am strong, because weakness makes room for God's strength. Now here is what you need to understand. These were not superhuman people. They were not spiritual giants who never experienced fear or doubt. They were ordinary human beings facing extraordinary challenges. What made the difference was not their strength. It was their source of strength. The same God who parted the Red Sea is with you today. The same God who brought down Goliath walks with you into your battles. The same God who sustained Paul through every trial will sustain you through yours. Let me share something that has transformed how I understand God's provision. Lamentations 3 verses 22 and 23 say, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning." Great is your faithfulness. I want you to focus on that phrase. New every morning. What does that mean? It means that yesterday's strength was designed for yesterday. Today brings a fresh supply. You cannot store up grace like you store food in a pantry. It is more like the manna that fell in the wilderness for the Israelites. It could not be kept overnight. It had to be gathered fresh each day. This morning, right now, heaven's warehouse has opened again. Fresh grace, fresh mercy, fresh strength, all of it waiting for you. But what does new mercies actually mean in practical terms? It does not mean that yesterday's problems have magically disappeared overnight. It does not mean that today will be easy or challenge-free. What it means is that today's grace is specifically designed for today's challenges. God does not give us strength for hypothetical futures that may never happen. He gives us strength for right now, this moment, this challenge. Think of it like a personal trainer at a gym. A good trainer does not give you weights that you will be lifting next year. He gives you the weight that is appropriate for today's workout. Your capacity grows as you use today's strength. Tomorrow will have its own supply. Jesus himself said in Matthew 6 verse 34, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I would add, each day has enough grace of its own. I remember a particularly overwhelming week in my own life. I was facing a family crisis, a major work deadline, and serious financial pressure all at the same time. When I looked at the week stretched out before me, I honestly could not see how I would make it through. The weight of it all felt crushing. But here is what I discovered. Each morning when I came to God in prayer, I found just enough strength for that day. Not for the whole week, just for that one day. Monday had Monday's grace. Tuesday had Tuesday's grace. And by the time I reached Friday, I realized something profound. I had been carried. I did not feel superhuman at any point, but I had been supernaturally sustained. This is the pattern of God's provision. But I have to be honest with you this morning. Even knowing all these truths, even understanding this theology, I still feel the weight. My head knows what my heart struggles to feel. Knowledge of Scripture does not automatically remove human fear. This is the tension we all live in. Is it not? Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is bringing our fear to the one who is greater than our fear. So before we move into prayer, before we ask God to equip us with strength, I believe we need to do something that our culture often discourages. We need to be brutally honest about what we are actually facing. We need to name the giants. We need to acknowledge the Red Seas in front of us. We need to bring our weakness into the light. Because honest prayer starts with honest assessment. God already knows what is troubling you, but you need to voice it. You need to lift it up and say, "This is too much for me." And that is not defeat. That is not giving up. That is the beginning of dependence. And dependence is where divine strength flows most powerfully. Let me walk with you through some of the specific weights that people are carrying into this morning, because I want you to feel seen and understood. Think about the healthcare worker who is starting a 12-hour shift right now. She is already exhausted from yesterday. Her body aches. Her mind is foggy, and she knows that today will bring more suffering to witness more critical decisions with life and death consequences, more grieving families who need comfort that she does not feel equipped to give. She has her coffee in hand, going through the motions, but inside, she feels like she is running on fumes. The tank is empty, but the shift must still be worked. Consider the parent of a special needs child. Another day of therapy's appointments, advocating in systems that seem designed to say no, fighting for services their child needs, fighting for understanding from people who do not get it. They love their child fiercely with every fiber of their being, but they are bone-tired. They wonder if they have the patience for one more meltdown, one more call with the insurance company where they have to explain their child's needs yet again, one more conversation with a well-meaning stranger who says something thoughtless. The love never wavers, but the energy is depleted. Think about the person walking into a toxic work environment. For them, entering the office building feels like walking onto a battlefield. They know their boss will find something to criticize, no matter how well they perform. They know a coworker will undermine them. They need the paycheck. Desperately, bills have to be paid, but they are paying for that paycheck with a piece of their soul each day. They put on the professional mask, smile, say, "Good morning," but underneath their heart is breaking. The dissonance between the exterior and interior is exhausting. Or consider the adult caring for an aging parent. Watching the person who raised you slowly fade is a grief that has no name. They are making decisions they never wanted to make, choosing between their own family's needs and their parents' needs, feeling guilty no matter what they choose. They sit beside a hospital bed or in a nursing home room, holding a hand that once held theirs, and they grieve even while their parent is still breathing. It is a long, slow goodbye, and it requires a strength that feels beyond human capacity. What connects all of these different scenarios? What is the common thread running through the healthcare worker's exhaustion, the special needs parent's advocacy, the employee's toxic workplace, and the caregiver's grief? It is not the specific challenge. It is the feeling of, I do not know if I have what this requires. It is waking up already tired. It is facing a mountain that seems impossible to climb. It is the gap. That terrible aching gap between what is being demanded and what we feel we can give. Let me describe this gap with imagery that might resonate with you. It is like being asked to run a marathon when your legs are already shaking and you can barely stand. It is like being asked to lift a massive boulder when you can barely lift your own arms. It is like being asked to solve a complex mathematical equation when your mind is nothing but fog and confusion. This gap is not imaginary. It is real. It is where so many of us live every single day. This gap is where we suffer. But here is what I am discovering and what I want to share with you. This gap is also exactly where God meets us. Now I want to talk about fear, because fear is often what fills that gap. And fear is rarely vague or abstract. Usually fear has a very specific name. For some of you, it is the fear of inadequacy, the voice that whispers, what if I fail? What if I let everyone down? What if I am simply not enough? This fear sits on your chest in the morning and follows you through the day. For others, it is the fear of pain. What if the diagnosis is bad? What if the treatment does not work? What if this hurts more than I can bear? Physical pain, emotional pain, the pain of loss. It all looms over you like a dark cloud. Some of you are afraid of conflict. What if they get angry? What if I say the wrong thing? What if this conversation destroys the relationship? So you avoid, you deflect, you keep silent, even as the silence slowly kills what you are trying to protect. There is the fear of loss. What if I lose my job? What if I lose this person I love? What if I lose myself in this process? And then there is the fear of exposure. What if they see that I am struggling? What if the mask slips and everyone realizes I do not have it all together? Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Sometimes the hardest part is not the challenge itself. Sometimes the hardest part is pretending you are fine when you are not. Social media shows us a highlight reel of everyone else's life, and it looks like they have it all together. Church culture can sometimes create pressure to always say, I am blessed, even when you are breaking inside. Work culture demands be professional, even when you are falling apart. So we wear masks. We say, I am fine when we are drowning. We smile when we want to scream. We nod politely when we want to collapse on the floor. And this pretending, this constant performance, takes its own terrible toll. It is exhausting to appear strong when you are weak. It is exhausting to project positivity when you are in despair. It is exhausting to maintain the image when you are barely maintaining consciousness. Maybe today, you do not even have the energy to put on the mask anymore. Let me get even more specific about the battles you might be facing today, because I want you to know that you are not alone. Maybe today holds a relational battle, a difficult conversation that you have been avoiding but can no longer put off. Perhaps it is with a spouse, and the distance between you has been growing for months, maybe years. Or it is with your child, who is making destructive choices, and you do not know how to reach them anymore. Maybe it is with a friend who hurt you deeply, and you need to address it. Or with a family member who refuses to understand your boundaries. Can you feel it? That knot in your stomach when you think about the conversation. You have rehearsed the words in your head 100 times. You have imagined their responses, their reactions, their potential anger. You want to avoid it, but you know that silence is also killing what remains of the relationship. You need strength, not just to speak, but strength to speak truth in love. Strength to hold a boundary without hardening your heart. Strength to be honest without being harsh. This requires supernatural grace. Or maybe today holds a professional battle. Perhaps you have a performance review that could determine your future with the company, or a presentation to an audience you know will be critical and skeptical, or a negotiation where the stakes feel impossibly high, or you have to confront a colleague about their behavior, or you have to make a decision that will affect many people's lives and livelihoods. Can you feel the pressure? Your reputation is on the line. Your income depends on the outcome. Other people are counting on you. The stakes feel crushing. And underneath it all, that imposter syndrome voice whispers that you are a fraud, that you do not really know what you are doing, that eventually everyone will figure out that you are not as competent as they think. You need strength not just to perform, but strength to maintain your integrity under pressure. Strength to do the right thing, even when it might be costly. Strength to trust God with results you cannot control. For some of you, today's battle is physical. Your body itself is the battlefield. Chronic pain that never gives you relief. An illness that drains every ounce of energy you have. A disability that requires constant adaptation and accommodation. A treatment that makes you sicker before it can make you better. For you, simply getting out of bed is a victory that nobody else sees. Taking a shower requires planning and recovery time. Making it through the day without completely collapsing is an achievement that earns no recognition. Nobody gives out medals for simply surviving. Nobody understands the sheer amount of strength it takes just to exist in a body that is fighting against you. And then, there are those of you whose battle is mental and emotional. Today, the fight is happening inside your own mind. Depression whispers that there is no point to any of this. Anxiety screams that everything is going to go wrong. Grief makes every breath feel heavy, like you are breathing underwater. Trauma keeps you in a state of hypervigilance, unable to relax, always waiting for the next threat. Addiction calls to you, promising relief, promising escape, even though you know it only makes things worse. Loneliness convinces you that nobody really cares, that you are fundamentally alone in this world. And here is what makes this battle so particularly cruel. It is invisible, so people dismiss it. They say, just think positive, just pray more, just choose joy, as if you have not tried, as if faith makes mental illness magically disappear. The shame of struggling with something others cannot see adds another layer to the struggle itself. I want to talk about something we rarely discuss honestly: the illusion of control. Let me list some of the ways we try to create our own strength to manufacture the power we need to face our challenges. We drink more coffee, more energy drinks, anything with caffeine to keep us going. We make more plans, create more detailed schedules, try to control every possible variable. We read more self-help books, listen to more podcasts, consume more strategies and systems. We speak more positive affirmations, try to think our way into courage. We hustle harder, grind longer, push through exhaustion. We impose more discipline, create stricter routines, regiment every hour of our day. None of these things are inherently bad. I am not against coffee or planning or self-improvement. But here is the truth we have to face. None of these things are ultimately sufficient. They cannot carry the weight we are asking them to carry. It is like running on a hamster wheel. You can run faster and faster, but you are not actually getting anywhere. You work harder but feel more depleted. You do more but accomplish less. Eventually you hit a wall. Eventually you realize that effort alone, no matter how sincere, is not enough. Let me share a specific time when I learned this the hard way. I was dealing with a family crisis, a critical work deadline, and serious financial pressure all happening simultaneously. I thought that if I just worked harder, slept less optimized every minute, I could handle it all. I made elaborate lists. I set multiple alarms. I scheduled every 15-minute block of my day. I felt like I was juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. And I was convinced that if I just concentrated hard enough, I could keep all the balls in the air. One morning, I sat in my car in the driveway. The engine was running. I needed to go to work, but I could not make myself open the car door. I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, unable to move. That was the moment I realized something that terrified me. I cannot do this. Not I cannot do this well. Not I cannot do this perfectly. But I literally cannot do this at all. My strength was not just insufficient. It was non-existent. The tank was empty. The well was dry. The reservoir was completely depleted. There was nothing left. Standing at the base of a mountain looking up at a peak that disappears into the clouds. The path ahead is steep, covered with loose rocks, treacherous. You watch other people seem to climb it easily, or at least they make it look easy from where you stand. But for you, even the first step feels impossible. Your legs are already shaking. Your lungs are already struggling to pull in enough air. And you have not even started the ascent. How do you climb a mountain when you can barely stand upright? How do you take the next step when the current step is overwhelming you? The mountain does not care about your feelings. It does not adjust its height to match your capacity. It simply is. Tall, imposing, immovable. And you are small, weak, utterly inadequate to the challenge. Or imagine standing on a shore looking out at a vast ocean. You cannot see the other side. The horizon stretches endlessly. The waves are high, the current is strong, and you know you need to cross it. You are a decent swimmer. You have skills. But this requires more than swimming ability. This requires endurance you do not possess. This requires strength beyond human capacity. And there is no boat waiting, no bridge spanning the distance, no shortcut around it. Just you and an impossible expanse of water. The ocean does not negotiate. It does not make exceptions. It does not shrink itself to match your ability. It simply waits, vast and deep and unconquerable. Think of Atlas in the Greek myths holding the entire world on his shoulders. Now think of yourself. You have a weight that feels just as heavy pressing down on you. But you are not a mythological giant. You are human, with human limits, human capacity, human strength that runs out. The burden does not become lighter because you are tired of carrying it. It does not shrink because you are struggling. It simply is what it is, and it is too much. Now let me talk about the voices that make this even harder. The tyranny of should. Listen to these sentences and see if they sound familiar. I should be stronger than this. I should be able to handle this without falling apart. Other people manage worse situations with more grace. I should have more faith. I should be grateful instead of complaining. I should not need help. I should not be this weak. These shoulds become their own crushing weight. So now you are not only carrying the actual burden of your circumstances, you are also carrying the shame of struggling with that burden. You are not only facing the challenge, you are also facing your own harsh judgment of yourself for finding the challenge challenging. Do you see how this creates a terrible spiral? You feel overwhelmed. Then you feel bad about feeling overwhelmed. Then you feel bad about feeling bad. Shame gets piled on top of struggle, gets piled on top of the original challenge, until you cannot even remember what the actual problem was anymore, because you are buried under layers of self-criticism. And then there is comparison. You look at other people who seem to handle everything better than you do. She is juggling 3 kids and a demanding career, and she still looks put together and posts beautiful pictures on social media. He is facing the same challenges you are, but he never seems rattled or stressed. They lost even more than you did, but they still praise God with genuine joy. What is wrong with me? Why am I weak when others are strong? Why am I struggling when others are sailing through? But here is what you do not see. You do not see their 3 a.m. crying sessions. You do not see their private moments of doubt and fear. You do not see the battles they fight when nobody is watching. You are comparing your inside to their outside, your messy reality to their curated performance, your struggle to their highlight reel. And that comparison is not just unfair. It is completely inaccurate. Our culture tells us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, to be self-sufficient, to not need anyone. And sometimes church culture accidentally reinforces this by saying, God helps those who help themselves, which is not even in the Bible, by the way. Both messages create the same pressure. Handle it yourself. Do not need help. Be strong. Be independent. But this is exhausting. And ultimately, it is impossible. We were not created to be self-sufficient islands. We were created for dependence. Dependence on God first and foremost, and dependence on community. We are not meant to carry everything alone. But we have been taught that needing help is weakness. So we struggle in isolation, trying to prove we can handle it slowly, being crushed under weight we were never meant to bear by ourselves. Eventually, there comes a moment, a breaking point, when you stop fighting. Not because you choose to stop, but because you simply cannot fight anymore. You have run out of strategies. You have exhausted your willpower. You have tried everything you know to try, and none of it worked. You are at the absolute end of yourself. And this moment feels like defeat, feels like failure, feels like giving up. You might even feel ashamed of reaching this point. But I want to tell you something that might change everything. This moment is not the end. This moment is actually the beginning of breakthrough. Because this is where God can finally work. When we stop trying to be the God of our own lives. When we stop pretending we are sufficient in ourselves. When we come to the complete end of self, we finally make room for the sufficient one. The prayer that comes from this place is different from our usual prayers. It is not eloquent. It does not use theological precision. It does not worry about saying the right words in the right way. It is just, help. Just, I cannot. Just, please. These simple, desperate prayers are sometimes the most powerful prayers we ever pray. Why? Because they come from a place of absolute honesty, absolute need. Not want, but need. Psalm 142 verses 1 and 2 say, I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out my complaint before him. Before him, I tell my trouble. This is where we are right now. Pouring out our complaint. Telling our trouble. Not with faith that feels like it could move mountains, but with faith that is the size of a mustard seed. Tiny, almost invisible, but alive. And that is enough. Before we move into prayer, I need to make sure we understand what surrender actually means, because there is a lot of confusion about this. Let me start by telling you what surrender is not. Surrender is not passivity. It is not just lying down and letting life roll over you. It is not giving up. It is not fatalism, that whatever will be attitude. It is not resignation to circumstances. It is not saying it does not matter anyway. It is not checking out emotionally. It is not becoming a doormat. Surrender is not passive. It is profoundly active. So what is surrender? Surrender is the deliberate, intentional transfer of control from yourself to God. It is acknowledging that His power is infinitely greater than your limitation. It is releasing outcomes that you cannot actually control anyway. It is trusting His heart, even when you cannot see His hand or understand His plan. Jesus said in Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." This is an invitation to surrender, to stop carrying what you were never meant to carry alone, to come to the one who can actually bear the weight. Surrender is laying down weapons that were never working anyway, and it is picking up the weapons that heaven provides. Ephesians 6, verses 10 and 11 tell us, "Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God." Here is the paradox that our human minds struggle to grasp. When we surrender control, we gain peace. When we admit our weakness, we access strength that is not our own. When we stop fighting in our own limited power, we start winning through his unlimited power. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 10 says, "When I am weak, then I am strong." This is upside-down kingdom mathematics. This is divine paradox. Our culture tells us to accumulate power, to maintain control, to project strength at all costs. But the kingdom operates on completely different principles. The kingdom says, release control and find peace. The kingdom says, admit weakness and discover strength. The kingdom says, the way up is down. The way to victory is through surrender. Now I want to pray with you, but I want to do it by invoking the specific names of Jesus, because each name reveals a different aspect of his character and his provision for us. First, Jesus, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. In Genesis 22, verse 14, after God provided a ram to sacrifice instead of Isaac, Abraham named that place, "The Lord will provide." When Abraham was asked to give up what he loved most, what seemed impossible to release, God provided a way. God saw the need before Abraham even spoke it. God made provision before Abraham knew he would need it. Today, we call on you, Jehovah Jireh. You are the one who sees our need before we articulate it. You are the one who provides not just material needs, although you do that too, but you provide strength when our strength is depleted. You provide wisdom when confusion reigns in our minds. You provide peace when chaos threatens to overwhelm us. Jesus, you are my provider. You see this day stretched out before me. You know every challenge I will face, every conversation I will have, every decision I will need to make. And you have already prepared provision for each moment. You have already allocated the grace I will need, the strength I will require, the wisdom I must have. I receive it now, by faith. Second, Jesus, Jehovah Rapha, the Lord who heals. In Exodus 15, verse 26, God revealed himself as, "I am the Lord who heals you." We need healing this morning. Some of us need physical healing, and we ask for that. But all of us need healing of the mind that races with anxious thoughts, healing of the heart that carries wounds from the past into the present, healing of the spirit that has been crushed under unbearable weight, healing of perspective that can only see impossibility instead of opportunity. Jesus, you are the healer. You heal what is broken in us. You restore what has been depleted. You renew what has been exhausted. Touch my mind this morning. Bring the sound mind that 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 promises. Bring calm where there is chaos. Bring clarity where there is confusion. Bring hope where there is despair. I do not just need to survive today. I need to be healed through today. To come out on the other side, not just intact, but transformed, restored, made new. Third, Jesus, Jehovah Shalom, the Lord who is peace. In Judges 6, verse 24, Gideon built an altar and called it, "The Lord is Peace." This happened when Gideon was hiding in a winepress, terrified of his enemies, feeling completely inadequate for the task God was calling him to. God looked at this frightened man and called him mighty warrior, and then revealed himself as Shalom, as peace. Jesus, you are my peace, not the peace that depends on circumstances being comfortable, not the peace that only exists when nothing threatens me, but peace in the middle of the storm, peace that does not make logical sense given my situation, peace that exists not because everything is fine, but because you are with me. John 14, verse 27, records your words. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Your peace is different from anything this world offers. The world's peace depends on everything going right. Your peace exists even when everything goes wrong. I need that peace this morning. Peace that passes all understanding. Peace that guards my heart and mind. Peace that is not the absence of the storm, but your presence in the storm. Now hear my prayer. Jesus, I come to you this morning with empty hands. I have nothing to offer but my need. I have no strength of my own for what awaits me today. I have tried my own strategies, and they are not sufficient. I have tried my own willpower, and it has failed me. I have tried to manufacture courage, and I cannot do it. So I come not with what I have, but with what I lack. Not with my fullness, but with my emptiness. Not with my strength, but with my desperate weakness. And I ask you to fill what is empty, to strengthen what is weak, to provide what is lacking. Romans 8, verse 26 says, "The Spirit helps us in our weakness." You do not require me to be strong before you will help me. You help me in the middle of my weakness. For the difficult conversation I must have today, give me your words. Not my words which will be defensive or harsh or inadequate, but your words which are gracious and true. For the challenge that feels impossibly big, give me your perspective. Help me see it the way you see it. For the person who will frustrate me today, give me your patience. Not my limited, quickly exhausted patience, but your patience that is inexhaustible. For the pain I know I will feel, give me your comfort. The comfort that does not just make me feel better temporarily, but sustains me through the valley. For the decision I must make, give me your wisdom. James 1 verse 5 promises that if anyone lacks wisdom, they should ask God who gives generously. I am asking. For the temptation I will face, give me your power to resist. Not my willpower which crumbles, but your power which is limitless. For the fear that will rise in my chest, give me your courage. Not false bravado, but real courage rooted in trust. For the doubt that will whisper lies, give me your truth that silences every lie. For the exhaustion that will threaten to overwhelm me, give me your renewal. Isaiah 40 verse 31 promises that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. I am not asking for an easy day. I am not asking for my problems to magically disappear. I am asking for an equipped heart. I am not asking for challenges to vanish. I am asking for your presence in the challenges. I am not asking for strength to avoid the battle. I am asking for strength to face it with you, beside me, in me, working through me. And now I make declarations of faith. I declare that you are able. Ephesians 3 verse 20 says, "You are able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to your power that is at work within us." I declare that you are faithful. Your faithfulness is new every morning, according to Lamentations 3 verse 23. I declare that you are with me. Matthew 28 verse 20 promises that you are with me always to the very end of the age. I declare that everything I will face today, every obstacle, every challenge, every difficulty, must bow to your authority. You are Lord over all of it. nothing can stand against you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Prayer is not just speaking to God. It is also listening. It is not just requesting, but receiving. Jesus said in Matthew 7 verse 7, "Ask, and it will be given to you." Not might be given, not could be given, will be given. So having asked, now I receive. How do I receive strength I cannot yet see? How do I receive provision that has not yet manifested? By faith. Hebrews 11 verse 1 defines faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. I receive by believing I have received even before I feel different, even before circumstances change. And something shifts, not in my circumstances, but in me. When I walked into this prayer time, my shoulders were slumped under the weight I was carrying. Now I stand differently, not because the burden has been removed, but because I am no longer carrying it alone. The weight is still there. The challenges still exist, but they are on different shoulders now. Isaiah 9 verse 6 says, "And the government will be on his shoulders. All authority, all responsibility, all weight on his shoulders, which are broad enough, strong enough, willing enough to carry what crushes me. So I can walk into today upright, not because I am strong in myself, but because I am carried by the strong one." Let me tell you about the miracle you should be looking for, because it might not be what you expect. The miracle is not necessarily that your challenges will disappear when you walk out that door. Your difficult boss is probably still going to be difficult. Your health issue still exists. Your financial pressure is still real. Your relational strain has not magically resolved. But something has shifted inside you. And that shift is the real miracle. Philippians 4 verse 7 describes it this way: "The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This peace is the miracle. It transcends understanding. It does not make logical sense. You should still be anxious given your circumstances, but you feel calm. You should still be overwhelmed, but you have clarity. You should still be afraid, but you have courage. Not manufactured courage that you worked up in yourself, but quiet, settled assurance that no matter what today brings you, will not face it alone. And that changes absolutely everything. Let me explain the difference between outer change and inner change, because this is crucial. Many people pray for outer change. They pray for God to remove the problem, to fix the circumstances, to make the difficulty go away. And sometimes God does that. Sometimes He parts the Red Sea. Sometimes He brings down Goliath. Sometimes He opens prison doors. But more often, much more often, God changes us in the situation, rather than changing the situation itself. And this is actually a greater miracle. Why? Because outer change is temporary. Inner change is permanent. Outer change affects our circumstances. Inner change affects our character. Outer change makes life easier for a moment. Inner change makes us stronger for a lifetime. The person who overcomes a challenge through God's strength is fundamentally different from the person who entered that challenge. They have been refined, matured, deepened. Romans 5 verses 3 and 4 tell us, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope." This is the process. Suffering is not wasted. It produces something valuable if we allow God to work through it. It produces perseverance, the ability to keep going, even when it is hard. Perseverance produces character, the inner substance that defines who we really are. And character produces hope, the confident expectation that God is faithful and will see us through. Let me try to describe what this supernatural peace actually feels like. Imagine standing in the eye of a hurricane. All around you, absolute chaos. Wind is howling at speeds that could destroy buildings. Rain is falling so hard, you cannot see 3 feet in front of you. The world is being torn apart. But in the center, in the eye of the storm, there is stillness, calm, quiet. This is what the peace of God is like. The circumstances around you are still stormy. The challenges are still real. But in the center of your being, there is stillness. Your heart rate slows down. Your breathing becomes deeper, more regular. Your mind, which was racing with 1,000 anxious thoughts, begins to clear. The what-ifs lose their power over you. You can think clearly. You can see a path forward, not because the path is easier than it was an hour ago, but because you are seeing it with different eyes now. Eyes of faith instead of eyes of fear. Eyes of trust instead of eyes of terror. And from this place of inner peace, you can act wisely. You can respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. You can move forward with confidence. Here is something fascinating. Science actually confirms what Scripture teaches about peace. When we experience genuine peace, our bodies respond in measurable ways. Cortisol levels, the stress hormone, begin to drop. Heart rate variability improves, which is a marker of better cardiovascular health. Immune function strengthens, and cognitive function sharpens. We literally think more clearly when we are at peace. We make better decisions. We see more options and possibilities. We can access creativity and problem-solving abilities that anxiety blocks. This is God's design. He created us to function optimally in a state of peace. Anxiety impairs every system in our body and mind. Peace empowers every system. So when God gives us His peace, He is not just making us feel better emotionally. He is equipping us to actually function better in every way. Let me share a personal testimony. When my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, the prognosis was grim. The doctors gave us a timeline measured in months, not years. I should have been completely terrified. Part of me was. The thought of losing my father, the man who taught me how to be a man, how to love my family, how to follow God, that thought was unbearable. But underneath the natural grief and fear, there was something else. A peace that I cannot fully explain. I could sit with him in that hospital room, hold his hand, look into his eyes, pray with him, and feel genuinely calm. Not the calm of denial, not the numbness of shock, but genuine deep peace. A settled assurance that whatever came, God was present. God was good. God was in control. That peace sustained me through months of treatment, through the ups and downs of scans and test results, through the difficult conversations about end-of-life care, and ultimately through his death. And even in the grief, even in the profound loss, that peace remained. It was not peace because everything turned out the way I wanted. It was peace because I knew I was held by a God who is faithful even in loss. Isaiah 40 verse 31 is one of the most quoted verses about strength, and I want to unpack it carefully. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Notice the progression here. Soar, run, walk. Soaring is supernatural elevation. It is seeing things from God's perspective instead of from ground level. It is mountaintop experiences when you feel carried above your circumstances. Running is active engagement with energy and purpose. It is having the strength to pursue what God has called you to with passion. But notice what comes last. Walking. Steady, consistent, one foot in front of the other movement. And the promise is that you will walk and not be faint. Here is what I have learned. Sometimes you will soar. There will be moments when you feel absolutely carried by God, when everything feels easy and empowered. But most days, most ordinary days, you will walk. You will simply put one foot in front of the other. You will do the next right thing, and then the next, and then the next. And the miracle is not that it feels easy. The miracle is that you do not faint. You do not collapse. You keep going. This is renewed strength. What does renewed actually mean? It does not mean that you never deplete. It means that you are refilled. Think about your smartphone. The battery drains throughout the day as you use it. This is normal, expected. But what do you do when the battery gets low? You plug it into a power source and it charges. Spiritual strength works exactly the same way. You will drain. The challenges of life will deplete you. This is not a sign of weakness or failure. This is just reality. But you return to the source. You plug into prayer. You connect with Scripture. You spend time in God's presence. And your strength is renewed, not once for all time, but again and again, daily, hourly if you need it. This is relationship, not a one-time transaction. How do you know when your strength has been renewed? What are the practical signs? You can face something that you could not face an hour ago. You can think clearly about a problem that was just overwhelming confusion before. You can choose patience in a situation where you felt only irritation. You can extend grace to someone when moments ago you felt only judgment. You can take the next step when you felt completely paralyzed. These are the signs. They are not dramatic. They are not flashy. But they are real. And they are enough. I want to talk about gratitude because something remarkable happens in this process. There is a shift from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. Before prayer, your inner dialogue was probably something like, I do not have enough. I do not have enough strength, enough wisdom, enough patience, enough courage, enough resources, enough time, enough help. Everything feels like lack and deficit. But after this time of surrender and prayer, something shifts. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because your perspective has changed. Now, your inner dialogue sounds more like, I have exactly what I need for this moment. You still face the same challenges, but you are seeing them through a different lens now, through the lens of God's provision, rather than the lens of your own limitation. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18 says, Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Notice it says in all circumstances, not for all circumstances. We are not called to be thankful for the difficulty itself, but we can find things to be genuinely grateful for, even in the middle of difficulty. Thank you, God, that I am not alone in this. Thank you that you are faithful even when I cannot see the full picture. Thank you that this struggle is not the end of my story. Thank you for the strength that I could not manufacture on my own. Thank you for peace that defies logic. Thank you for carrying what I could not carry. Gratitude is a powerful spiritual weapon. It shifts our focus from what is wrong to what is right, from what is missing to what is present, from fear to faith. And interestingly, neuroscience has discovered that practicing gratitude actually rewires our brains. It creates new neural pathways. It literally changes how we perceive reality. When we practice gratitude consistently, we begin to notice more things to be grateful for. It becomes an upward spiral, the opposite of anxiety's downward spiral. So as you prepare to walk out into this day, start with gratitude. Thank God for the breath in your lungs, for this new day that you have been given, for His presence that never leaves you, for the strength He has already provided. And watch how your entire perspective begins to transform. I want to make a declaration with you about what victory means today. Victory does not mean that everything is going to go perfectly. Victory does not mean you will face no obstacles or challenges. Victory means that you face everything with Jesus. Victory means that the obstacles you encounter must bow to His authority. Not that the obstacles disappear necessarily, but that they cannot separate you from His love or derail His purposes for your life. Romans 8 verses 37 through 39 say, "In all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." More than conquerors. Not just barely surviving, not just scraping by, but more than conquerors. Thriving in the middle of challenge, overcoming when others would be overcome. Not because of anything in us, but because of Him who loved us. Every challenge you face today, every difficulty, every trial, every obstacle, must acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord. And what He has equipped, He will sustain. What He has begun, He will complete. What He has promised, He will perform. Now I want to ask you something, and I really want you to engage with this. In the comments below, would you share what you are facing today that needs God's strength? You do not have to share details if it is too personal. But maybe just say, "I need strength for a difficult conversation," or "I need strength to face a health challenge," or "I need strength to keep going when I feel like giving up." When you type it out, when you name it, something powerful happens. You are bringing it into the light. You are inviting this community to stand with you. And I promise you, someone else reading the comments will see yours and realize they are not alone in their struggle. And while you are at it, if this prayer has spoken to your heart, if you have felt encouraged or strengthened, would you hit that like button? It helps this video reach more people who need to hear this message. And please subscribe to this channel so we can continue to pray together. There are going to be more mornings when you need to be reminded of these truths. More days when you need to hear that you are not alone, that God is faithful, that His strength is available. Let this community be part of your support system. I also want to ask you to share this video with someone who needs it. You probably know someone right now who is struggling, who feels overwhelmed, who could use this reminder that God's strength is available for them. Send them this link. Tell them you are praying for them. Be the hands and feet of Jesus to someone else today. As you leave this time of prayer and step into your day, I want you to carry these truths with you. You are not facing today in your own strength. You are facing it in His strength. When you feel weak, and you will feel weak at moments, remember that you have been strengthened by the strong one. When you feel afraid, and fear will try to rise in your chest, remember that you are accompanied by the one who has overcome the world. When you feel overwhelmed, and the weight will seem heavy at times, remember that you have been equipped by heaven itself. You can return to these truths as many times as you need throughout this day. His strength is not a one-time gift that you receive in the morning, and then it runs out by noon. It is a constant, continuous supply, a well that never runs dry, a source that never depletes. Here is the deep lesson that I have learned through my own struggles, and I want to leave you with this profound truth. God does not always calm the storm around us. Sometimes, many times, He calms His child in the middle of the storm. And that is actually the greater miracle. Because the storm will eventually pass. Storms always do. But the peace that you gain in the storm, the strength you develop through the challenge, the character that is forged in the fire that stays with you, that becomes part of who you are. You become a person who knows from lived experience that no matter what comes, you can face it. Not because you are strong in yourself, but because your God is strong, and He is with you, always with you, never leaving, never forsaking, faithful through every storm. So walk into this day with your head up, with confidence. Not confidence in yourself, but confidence in the one who has called you, equipped you, and promised to sustain you. Whatever awaits you today, you are ready. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you know the one who does. May the peace of God that passes all understanding guard your heart and mind today. May His strength uphold you. May His presence comfort you. May His wisdom guide you. Go in peace, my friend. You are loved, you are equipped, and you are never, never alone.